To order tonight's regular meeting of the Board of Education. Roll call, please.
Mr. Marin?
Here.
Ms. Coyle?
Here.
Ms. Redonio?
Here.
Ms. Hoover?
Here.
Ms. Steckity?
Here.
Ms. Conover?
Here. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have an action item. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Carlos Avila to the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 201 to fill the unexpired term of Dana Strohmeyer.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Okay. Carlos? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, state your name, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 201
I, Carlos Avila, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Community Unit School District 201
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois, to the best of my ability.
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois to the best of my ability.
I further swear that I shall respect taxpayers' interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets.
I further swear I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while representing the privacy of students and employees.
I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels.
As a part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality of education of every student in the school district.
As a part of the Board of Education, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Community Unit School District 201.
I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Community Unit School District 201.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework.
I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework.
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall strive to ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law.
I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students in our community school to advance the vision for Community Unit School District 201.
I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community school to advance the vision for Community Unit School District 201.
And I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision the board has created, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Welcome to the board, Carlos.
Pardon He's good. I'll send you one. There.
Okay. The chair will now entertain a motion to enter closed session to discuss personnel issues and collective bargaining, and the setting of price for the sale or lease of property owned by the public body.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Havia?
Yes. You go in there?
Yep.
18th, and we are returning from closed session. The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April 27th, 2021 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the April 27th, 2021 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the May 11th, 2021 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the May 11th, 2021 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comments tonight? Okay. So we will move into the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Number 1, personnel recommendations. Rebecca Fry, first grade summer school teacher. Anna Trebetti, second grade summer school teacher. Jacob Juska, volunteer for Westmont High School wrestling program. Jim Dalipi, volunteer for Westmont High School girls basketball program. Danielle Gutierrez, Westmont High School night custodian. And then we also have a retirement and a resignation. Number 2, approval of the May 2021 expenditure report. And number 3, ratification of the April 2021 regular payroll.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Hevia?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Okay. We'll move on to our items for information and discussion, the first being the proposed student handbook revisions, second reading.
And Kevin Weck, Assistant Principal for the high school, is here to share with us the information.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kevin Weck. I'm one of the assistant principals at Westmont High School, and this is the second reading for the handbook for the district. And this is just for the 21-22 handbook revisions. Are there any questions pertaining to the conversation that we had at the last board meeting? No? Okay. Well, I'd like to say welcome to the board, Carlos.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, thank you so much. Everyone enjoy your evening.
Thank you for coming tonight,
Thank you.
Kevin. So the next item on the agenda is the update on the 2020-2021 school year.
And as I've been doing every board meeting this year, providing a board with an update on how the school year has gone, and this will be my last update for the school year because our next board meeting will be into the summer, so that's kind of good. But again, I always start with some of the same basic information because again, we don't know who's listening in for the first time. But again, currently we're phase 4 and we're transitioning to phase 4.5, and pretty soon we'll be in phase 5. Again, all school year, our guiding principles have always been the priority is the health and safety of all of our students and staff. We want to make sure that the academic experiences are meaningful and engaging for our students. We've been focused on the social emotional needs of our students. We want to make sure that we are consistent and we provide a stable environment for our students and staff. And throughout the year, we're providing professional learning opportunities for our staff as we navigate this year. Kind of an update on quarantine since our last board meeting. We've had one person that was exposed, an individual that was positive for COVID-19, and that person had a quarantine in both our certified staff and our non-certified staff, but overall, no significant changes there. when we look at our students, and our numbers have been increasing, but that is to be expected because we've brought a lot more students back and we're in school full days now. But you can see for non-serve, being able to not certify, we had 9 students at South since our last board meeting, 72 at Manning. Miller, we had 30, the junior high 36, and the high school 30. And then in terms of testing positive, we've had 3 positive tests for students at Manning and 1 at the junior high. But again, these numbers have been increasing, but that's, I'm talking to neighboring districts, they've also experienced the same changes as well. In terms of athletics, our spring sports are underway. We've had no issues with COVID. We haven't had to quarantine any teams as a result. We've had no positive cases since the March 16th board meeting. Again, we've had experienced low participation, which is the same thing other school districts are seeing. And right now, the IHSA is anticipating that fall sports will start on time next year, so there won't be a delay in the seasons, and they're anticipating winter, spring sports will be back on the normal athletic calendar when we get into next year. Positivity rates, and I did update this today, and this is as of Monday. So a little bit of an uptick from what we had in the board book on Friday. So Westmont's at 3.35, Downers Grove 1.5, Clarendon Hills 3.59, and Hinsdale's at 4.32. And the average for our local area is 3.19 positivity rate. In terms of the school metrics that's provided by the DuPage County Health Department, everything's trending in the correct direction. What's keeping us insubstantial again is the number of new cases. It's 133 per 100,000. That will be lower this week. It's coming in about 107. And the DuPage County Health Department, if we're going to be in school 2 more weeks, they're anticipating that in 2 weeks that it'll be moderate. At that level, we'll be out of substantial. And again, the CDC transmission levels, that's been guiding us this second half of the year. And again, our new cases per 100,000 are a little bit above 100, but then our positivity rate is less than 5%. And so that's what allows us to be in person for full days. And again, that's just a breakdown of each of the levels and how schools can interpret that information. For the second semester, our criteria has been less than 10% positivity rate and 100 cases, less than 200 per 100,000. And we've been able to maintain that, and we've been able to keep our schools in throughout the second semester. And again, just recapping, the DuPage County Health, we're less than 5%. Westmont's 3.35, locally 3.19. The cases of people under 20 years, that is decreasing, 20 years of age. And again, we're under 200, and we're currently in-person learning. On the vaccine horizon, the CDC did approve Pfizer for 12 to 15-year-olds now. So we're able to expand our local clinic to include students 12 and above. And Hinsdale Central, Thursday, May 20th is the opportunity, as well as Downers Grove, that should be Downers Grove South, is May 26th. And we have sent out that information to our families. Some of our families are opting to register their child for the vaccine. We're probably, I'd say, running about 40%, but that's not to say 60% are not choosing to be vaccinated. It's that some families have already started the process on their own, and they don't need to work through the clinic. So hopefully it'll be higher than that. And the, you know, as far as the mask requirement, when they first announced last week, the CDC, that if you were fully vaccinated, you no longer had to wear masks. At that time, we were still under the governor's emergency order, and so that still required masks in the state of Illinois. Since then, that's been modified, but again, the IDPH is still saying that for schools, masks are still required, and so we've only got, I think it's 7 days left of of student attendance, and so we'll be wearing masks through the end of the year. And we still don't know next year what that means, but at least through the end of the year. And then again, a quick update on summer school. Again, it's going to be June 14th through July 1st, 8:30 to 11:30, Monday through Thursdays. Invitation only this year, and those families have been contacted by their schools, inviting their children to be part of that process. So you hired a couple of summer school teachers today. Those are outside employees. The board doesn't need to approve our current employees, and so we're fully staffed for summer school. We were able to get all of our staff that we need, and so we're looking forward to a good experience for our students. And that's my updates. Any questions?
Kevin, can I ask a question about the summer school? Is it on site for us? I know there was previous meetings
Yes,
you talked about.
It will be on
being a
site.
kind of a countywide.
And as of right now, we're not anticipating any other students other than 201 students attending.
So also on summer school, do we know roughly how many students?
That I don't know. I'd have to check with the principals to see how many students were invited and then how many parents signed their children up.
Okay, could we have that for the next meeting, just to see, I'd like to see how many were invited, for sure, kind of where we're sitting at for percentage. And then I had a question on the vaccine, and it's a little bit of a multi-parter, and I apologize. So, like our teachers, we were able to ask if teachers were getting vaccinated. Are we going to, or do we know if we're able to ask that for students as well?
I'll get a legal opinion on that.
Okay, cool.
To see.
I wasn't sure because,
Right.
yeah. And then, have we started, or can we start having the discussion around if the vaccine is federally approved, or not? It's got the approval from the FDA for the temporary use, but if it gets full approval, have we started having the discussion, or do we start having the discussion around adding it to our list of things that kids need to have before they come?
In order for public school to mandate it, it actually have to be either through legislation or through the Illinois Board of Education. And so depending upon when that approval comes in would determine whether or not school districts should be able to mandate it for next school year.
Okay, that's really, really helpful, and I'm very glad that we don't have to make that decision.
No, that's one of those things that's above our pay grade.
Because my follow-up was, is that a board decision? I'm really glad that it's not.
Yes, it would be, but again, that would be something that would have to come from another body, not the school district.
Cool, awesome, thank you.
I also have a couple questions about the vaccine, kind of a different vein of questions, but I think one of the issues that we're running into now is that it is so widely available and people are electing just not to get it. And yet I think especially in a school setting where next year if we have all of our students in the building, we won't get that 6 feet. Students who aren't vaccinated will have to quarantine, those who are will not. And so, and I think that there's all kinds of different information out there about the vaccine. So I'm just wondering if there's been any discussion about education for the community. I know that the schools, the district has done a great job of saying, here's where you can go to look up this information, or here's where you can go to register for the vaccine, but just in terms of, you know, education. And I know that that's not necessarily our responsibility, but I think it could help. We want our kiddos to be vaccinated, right. So.
That will be something we'll be doing all summer.
Great.
Is communicating that information. And the hope is that they'll, again, approve the vaccine for younger students. And the same thing will happen as we're doing with our 12-year-old students and older. As soon as that approval comes in, we'll work on coordinating so that we can offer that opportunity, but yes, also educate our parents and our families on the importance of it.
Great, thank you.
I do have a few questions. To play off the invitation and getting the numbers of how many students, can they opt out? I know we're doing summer school to help those who have fallen behind. What if it's just not feasible with their family dynamic?
Yes, it is possible that a family would, and so those students, the schools will still work with those families and provide some resources, and then obviously going into next year, they'll make sure that there's additional support for those students as well.
Okay, and then on the masks, as of today, the mandates and everything, will you be requiring masks for the summer school students?
At this point, we would,
Okay.
because right now the guidance is still for a school setting to wear masks.
And if it were to change before then?
If it were to change before then, and we were able to no longer have that requirement, then yes, we would no longer have that requirement.
All right, that's it, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. The next item on the agenda is planning for the 2021-2022 school year.
And I didn't do a PowerPoint for this, but we are in the process of planning for next school year, and as a matter of fact, Nadine's presentation that's just coming up next, it will be about the grant funding through the ESSER dollars and how the district is proposing to utilize those funds. But as we're planning for next year, we are planning to be fully in person, full days, from the start of the school year at this time. As a matter of fact, the State Board of Ed is going to be passing a resolution tomorrow at their meeting that essentially is saying the same thing, that they are planning for schools in Illinois to be fully in person, full days, next school year. There is the caveat, we know that, it doesn't mean that COVID-19 will be eradicated, but because of the fact that so many more people will be vaccinated, we'll start to have students vaccinated, that we're able to plan for that. There may be some students who either their own personal health or a family member, they may be more vulnerable to serious illness if they were to contract COVID-19 or a member of their household. Those families, we would have a remote option for those families, but that has to be medically certified. And so like the past year, school districts had to provide a remote option for families in general. Next year, it's only for students who are medically certified. So the district will be sending out a survey to families who think that their child will qualify or their situation qualifies for that. And then we will be sending out the paperwork that needs to be completed by a physician that does indeed certify for them, for that experience. But we are definitely planning for fully in-person next school year. And then depending upon what mitigations are in place, obviously we'll have to follow those, but best case scenario is where we don't have to worry about, physical distance. We don't have to consider those things. I don't know if we'll be without masks. We'll have to wait for that guidance to come forward. But our plan is, it'll be very similar to a normal school year for us next year.
That's great. Thank you, Kevin. Questions?
Yeah, on that, there was something in there about we were still gonna have to offer remote learning as it stands right now, correct?
Right.
And about a Illinois Virtual Academy?
Right, that's something we're looking at, because one of the things that we're also cognizant of, the synchronous teaching that's currently going on, that's something that's not gonna be sustainable for next school year. And so we're looking at different options. There was a ray of hope. We had, the ROE organized a meeting for school districts in which Illinois Virtual School was present. And it was sold as this may be a solution for K through 12. And they can accommodate students 6 through 12 virtually. So we're still looking at either school districts working together to offer an option for K-5. We're looking at those options, how to provide for those students who would need a remote experience for kindergarten through 5th grade.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that as we move forward through that piece, if we go with that or Illinois Virtual Academy for the older students, that we are still keeping in mind the learnings that we had from this year as far as rooming and zooming and technology for the younger grades, and that we really think through what that remote
Right.
option looks like for those youngest students, keeping in mind the majority of the students being in the classroom. So,
Yep.
thank you.
I'm just curious, has there been much conversation about if that will change as we learn more about the vaccine? And I mean, if that's a viable option to protect those who are medically vulnerable because of COVID, and there is this vaccine that is safe and effective, and they have that available to them, why would we still give the option to learn remotely, if that makes sense? So, and I know that this, you know, with any vaccine, it's still in such like its brand new phase, so that's gonna take some time. I'm just curious if there's been any conversation about it yet.
There hasn't. I know we've even had a couple of employees that it was recommended that they not receive the vaccine because of their compromised health. So there could be some of those scenarios as well, even if it does, right now it's under emergency approval, the vaccine. My understanding, it still would be minimally a few months before it, you know, would get the official approval. And then there may be still, you have to plan for the possibility that a student still may not be able to take the vaccine if it's their own health that's jeopardized. And so we still have to plan for that contingency.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. The next item is the ESSER 2 and 3 grant budget.
Good evening, Board of Education. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I'm here today to provide some background information to help explain how we receive our federal funding and how we're going to leverage our federal funding for the coming year to be able to maximize our opportunity for our students. So you'll hear me talk about our grant funds as well as our ESSER funds, and then there's some more discussion about the grant later on, because the district has wrapped those two opportunities together to try and maximize our plans. So that's why we've included all of the federal funds in this presentation to kind of give you some background information. So hopefully
Should we see it up there?
you know what? It had Mr. Carey's was not up there either.
I just want to
Oh,
make sure,
was
is it being,
Is it being telecast?
yeah, because this is a really important,
Should I
coming in.
run
Yeah,
back
he's
there and
coming
ask
in.
him?
Yours wasn't, and it's not, because there's something wrong.
Oh, okay. All right.
Maybe
When it comes
technical
from
difficulty.
Can you download it and stream it from PowerPoint, or
Sure.
put it on PowerPoint?
So it doesn't,
I don't know, it should work. It's not, I don't know why.
okay, I can download it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Takes just a minute.
Because that's what you're getting as your alternate screen, which is just your
Mhm.
desktop.
Okay. Bear with me for a second, I'm sorry. Technical issues.
We've had a few this year.
Now, I apologize in advance. Sometimes when you download from Google, you lose some of the formatting, so this is a risk.
Here's There we go.
Yay,
there we
righty
go.
then.
wonderful.
Okay.
It likes it to be on the computer.
Thank you. I just
Thank
really
you.
wanted to make sure that,
No, that was
Yeah,
a good
everybody can
call.
see it.
yes.
Excellent. So I'll bring it on.
So we'll make
photograph
sure
for now.
for next time we know that this isn't a better situation. So the federal funds with regard to the emergency funds, there's 3 buckets of funds. One of them is the CARES Act, and that was the funds that we got last spring, and those are we're pretty much wrapping up the spending on that first round. The ESSER 2, we have to apply, we'll be applying for our grant in the coming week. I think we have to get that in soon. And that's about $524,000. And then the final grant, ESSER 3, which is opening up on July 1st, that is 1.17 million. So those three sets of funds, my conversation tonight is going to be about the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. So ESSER 1 is, and I'll explain how those were spent. ESSER 1 is pretty much spent, and then I'll briefly overview the grant funds because the opportunities were sort of spread out among those federal funds. So these are approximate because I don't know what the allocation is for next year. Typically, it's the same every year. So I just base this information on what we received last year. So Title I is the funds that we use for the reading interventionists, the materials that we might purchase to support instructional programming. Those are typically things that involve the students and the teachers directly into the classroom, typically. Not to be confused with Title II is professional development, everything involving professional learning for the teachers. And then we get a small amount for Title III. And then Title IV is another small amount, and we typically use that portion or that particular grant for activities around social and emotional learning. So if you kind of think about ESSER 2 and 3, and then all these grants sort of lumped in together, that's how we are going to leverage those opportunities for our students. So this is how the CARES Act that we had access to in the spring, this is essentially what we spent that grant on. Lots to do with technology. We had to do an emergency order for laptops for our teachers' aides and other staff members to facilitate remote learning. We had to take care of our Chromebooks. And then obviously a significant portion of the grant went toward things that involved providing a safe and healthy learning environment for our students. And then the nursing services. That's only a portion of the nursing services. It's going to carry over to the ESSER 2 funds as well, and that's reflected in the information. The allowable uses for the ESSER, and there's a long list of allowable uses, so I pulled out the ones that apply to what we're doing, okay? So obviously still the purchase of materials to provide a safe working and learning environment, and the implementation of summer learning or anything that's over and above what we do during the school year. Providing the principals with resources necessary to address instructional needs of their building. That's a very big umbrella, but that's how they word it. So basically is anything to do with what the principals need because of COVID. So this includes new programming, supplemental programming, taking something that we've been doing and really augmenting it. And so in order to make those plans, the degree of collaboration between the principals was phenomenal. I worked with each one of the principals individually, and then we worked together as an administrative team to design a program that's going to be the best for our students. And finally, and because I'm going to talk a lot about teaching and learning, but I do want to make sure the board understands that ESSER 3, which is the largest grant, the one that comes available in July, that also provides the school district an opportunity to upgrade a capital project. We have $600,000 earmarked to provide air conditioning for the junior high. And details about that project, Mrs. Anderson will be able to handle. Okay, so I'm going to give you the highlights. There's a lot of details on that spreadsheet, and there's a lot of brand names and vendor numbers and all of that. So I want to kind of provide the highlights. The other thing is these figures are really tentative. We're still negotiating with vendors. We're still lining up, exactly what the programming is going to look like. So in order to create the budget, this is essentially how we have it lined out, but I do want to stress that It is tentative and it is still kind of a moving target. We'll come close or we might change depending on, you know, what happens throughout the school year, but for the most part, this is sort of the highlight of the payroll. So everything to do with summer learning this year, planning, training, teaching, that's all wrapped into that number. The materials, we are using a research-based program this year. We're purchasing it from Scholastic. It's something that's been around for a long time, but it's based on best practices for literacy instruction. And so we're super excited about that program because it is research-based and it's very structured and it's very intentional. So we're, in fact, Scholastic's going to be helping us because we're going to be giving them the learning targets that we're going to focus on, and they're going to tell us where the program has that focus. So that's going to be a collaborative effort between the vendor and the schools. There's other materials that we want to purchase, that we will be purchasing, that will be used throughout the school year, but we want to sort of get it started during the summer. And the specific materials are from Wilson, and they are materials that address phonetics, phonemic awareness, early literacy, word study. That's what the materials that are going to be starting to be used in the summer, but also carried through the school year. And obviously a big part of the focus for ESSER, the opportunity to do something over and above the school year, so we are providing tutoring outside of the school day, which is something we typically do using Title I, so that will be paid for out of Title I. And the extended day is K-5, which we typically do on a very limited basis for Title III sometimes, but in this program, we have allocated funds to provide after school or before school work with our students who need extra support. We have a contingency plan to help us with the remote learning. So we know, as you discussed with Mr. Carey, that there's a potential for some of our students to need instruction outside of the school day or outside of the typical school setting. So our contingency is reflected on the slide. And that could be payroll, it could be tuition for Illinois Virtual Schools, but we have that set aside so that we have available funds for that, that plan. So far, okay. Going through the payroll, we're going to continue with our providing an additional nurse. We're going to provide an additional school psychologist, the instructional coach to get into the classrooms and support the teachers, because with all of this new programming, the teachers are going to need a significant amount of just-in-time, side-by-side, co-learner, professional learning. So the instructional coach will be essential to ensure that these programs are implemented with fidelity and that teachers feel like they have support ongoing. There's a set of interventionists that we're going to provide, including a part-time reading specialist at Manning, full-time bilingual interventionist at Manning, full-time math interventionist at Manning, and a part-time reading and part-time math at the high school. And that's over and above the interventionist staff that we already have in place. I mentioned Orton Gillingham in this slide because that's a pretty profound investment that we're going to make in the Orton Gillingham approach to teaching reading. So it is our hope that we can get everyone trained on phonemic awareness based on the Orton Gillingham approach, and then have some key staff members trained on the entire Orton Gillingham reading reading approach, because between now and the next year, we hope that we will be able to leverage this, this grant to really get some intentional professional learning to help teachers really shore up their understanding of the biology of teaching reading. The junior high is going to make a really significant investment in materials and professional learning and time and effort to integrate guided reading and reading interventions that are around guided reading at the junior high. We've been working with our teachers for several years to implement guided reading in K-5. So the junior high is going to kind of carry that program through and really commit to the guided reading practices. And Amy Quattrone, who's a reading specialist, she is really behind this effort and really has developed some champions at the junior high and to develop this capacity to change or really shift their reading and their literacy instruction, reading and writing, to be consistent with what we've been doing in the younger grades. So it's a lot of professional learning, a lot of materials around guided reading, reading intervention, as well as very intentional instruction for writing. So I kind of put a slide for each one of the buildings with the highlights of what we will use the grant funds for. South Early Childhood is going to further develop their multisensory materials and multisensory resources for their students. And so they've come up with some needed materials, and I just kind of represented there what kinds of things. There's Lightbox kitchen, multisensory, materials. And then Miller will similarly develop a space for students to be able to utilize a play-based literacy experience where students will use multisensory play-based materials, toys, kitchen, those types of things, for students to be able to interact with one another, develop literacy skills, mathematical skills, but do it in a method that encourages students to engage in inquiry, social interaction, those types of learning experiences that are all research-based. Before we went out on COVID, teachers were being trained on play-based literacy instruction and play-based learning. The instructional coach, Tracy Bailey, was doing a lot of work with our primary teachers, actually K through 2 mostly, on the play-based materials and play-based approach. And now this will give us an opportunity to really develop this and really shore up the approach to include the resources that the students will need. And once again, the Orton Gillingham, the training also includes materials. And then there are intervention programs that are all research-based that address gaps in literacy as well as math. Manning is going to develop their STEM and inquiry-based learning program, science program, and they're providing materials that are going to promote inquiry-based learning in science and STEM. So they're developing a space and resources for students to be able to engage in inquiry-based manipulatives, experiments, building, all of those types of materials that would fit into the NGSS standards. The intervention staff, obviously, to work directly with the students, and as much as possible within her what I need when time to team teach, push in as much as possible to be able to engage in co-teaching or a model where students will work with extra time for literacy or extra time for math so that we can shore those gaps. But as much as possible, have the intervention staff partner with the regular ed teachers so that we can build the regular ed teachers' capacity on how to work those intervention programs within their own classroom. There's a organization that we work with at the junior high that we are potentially going to work with to provide counseling, mental health services for families and students who are unable to provide those resources with their own funds. And then also we're going to provide News ELA, which gives our students an opportunity to engage in authentic text and be able to connect literacy, science, and social studies to real-world topics. So that's the other item that's mentioned there. Once again, the guided reading program is going to be very important to the junior high, and materials to support the intervention. The intervention programs are aligned with guided reading, so that'll be important for those, important opportunity for those students. Obviously, the dual language learners, and the materials to support high quality writing, intentional lessons and units around providing students with the best instruction for writing. We're going to have 2 part-time staff, or a part-time reading interventionist, a part-time math interventionist, which was it's kind of an innovative idea because we haven't had an interventionist at the high school work directly with students who are at risk of failure. Again, the counseling and mental health services we're hoping to engage for the high school students, and then News ELA will also be available to the high school. That's kind of a laundry list. I hope I didn't overwhelm you. So, what questions do you have?
So Nadine, thank you. That was very, very good, and I understand the amount of work that goes into putting together something like this. So I think you guys have done an incredible job in a short amount of time. I guess I have 2 questions. The first is just on measurement, and what do you know now what they will be requiring for reporting? And you don't have to go into detail, but do we know, generally speaking, how we're going to have to report on the success of how we used the funds?
We always have to report on the title funds. We always have to say what we've done, what the expected outcome is, and the title fund or the title reports are never really very specific. They don't require us to attach a number, like there's a specific percentage of growth.
Right.
The goals are kind of set by the district, our expectations, and we're going to, as an admin team this summer, we're going to dive into our data and really kind of set some realistic goals and know what our expectations are for the first year. So I would imagine that the ESSER fund reports will be similar in terms of we're going to set our own goals and how it is that we achieve those goals, or are we progressing, are we growing, those types of things.
Great, okay, so there's not mandates
No,
coming.
no,
Okay,
and the other thing is that, a lot of this is really just building our own capacity, because we're improving the whole program, so.
And that leads to my second question. With a lot of the positions, how does that work with a one-time infusion of cash? Like, what is the longevity of those positions? Are they all temporary? Like, how do we, what's the sustainability plan, or are we planning on having these be sustainable?
For the most part, when we're hiring the interventionists, the new coach, those we know it's 1 year.
Yeah.
We know it's 1 year. We know we have to work really hard to build our capacity and to close those gaps and make sure we're really targeted and we're very intentional and we're very specific on what we're doing.
Okay.
So for the most part, everyone that we've hired they know it's a one-year
Temporary,
position,
they
right?
know it's-
And so, yeah, as you said, the funds are a finite amount.
Right.
So that's all I can
So
speak to now.
every position on here is literally just a
Just a
1 year,
push.
okay. That's helpful, thank you.
Laura, can I play off of that? I had a question about one of the positions, but this will play in. Instructional bilingual coach. Would that be someone who would go across all the buildings?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
That-
and on that note, with it being a finite number, that's something I think that we would seriously benefit from going forward. So it's kind of scary that this is just
I wish
for
I
the
could take
year.
my mask off so you could see the look on my face. That individual who's, and we know who that person is, I imagine you're going to be seeing his name in terms of approving his position. That individual has proven success with his classroom, has proven success with implementing and developing an optimal teaching and learning environment for students with English as a second language. His expertise in dual language, he has a graduate degree in dual language leadership. That individual, we are super excited about the potential of helping us gain capacity. Now I value the coach as a concept, but we have to just take one step at a time right now. So I fully expect this individual to make a tremendous impact. But right now, our plan is 1 year because that's all we know.
Yeah.
Right now, that's all we know.
I think that's one of the big challenges of this is how do you make these positions have as much impact as possible in 1 year without developing a reliance that we can't maintain.
Right.
So, you know, I think this is a great plan, and that's just my one, like, you know, it's a challenge for sure.
It sure is.
I did have a couple of other questions on there. And first thing, call me a newbie. I know what the title grants are. I knew that before. What does the non-public fair share mean?
The non-public fair share for the title grants, we partner with Holy Trinity.
Okay.
So their low-income students bring funds from Title 1, 2, and 4 to their building. So when you see the numbers up there, you have to take a little bit of that amount, knowing that we have to provide a fair share to Holy Trinity, and it's based on their low income.
Okay. Then second, you said it's pretty finite, the numbers year to year about the funding for the areas. Would it change based on if the number of students in need increased?
The title grants are based on the
previous year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So our allocations are based on the low income from
when the pandemic started?
last year.
Okay. And then finally, with the ESSER and the safety equipment that we're getting from the school, little question mark popped in my head because we've asked students in the past to provide wipes as part of their supplies that come in. I know of both Miller and Manning, and then a couple years ago, Manning had created the PTO fees where the PTO brought it in, so the kids didn't have to carry it in. Are we not gonna ask for that this year, like the wipes at least?
The cleaning solutions, the cleaning supplies that were purchased by the maintenance department are much more sort of global.
Okay.
You know, a lot more cleaning surfaces, mass.
Mm-hmm.
Those wipes are kind of like just a basic need.
Okay.
So yes, the students will still bring those wipes. They'll still need them, just as part of their,
Just
their routine
clean
or
up
whatever.
and that. Okay. That's all I had. Thank you, Nadine.
I have a couple of quick questions. The first one I'm just wondering about, and they all have to do with guided reading. The first one, for the high school, what is, for the elementary schools, it's going to be the Wilson and then the Orton.
Orton Gillingham, that's just part. So,
Okay.
so they, guided reading is their approach in K-5. The Orton Gillingham and the Wilson Foundations, which is their kind of materials for, that's just part of the literacy teaching and learning experience for the students, so that it's an entire package. So guided reading is an approach to meeting the needs of the individual students with regard to reading comprehension, but coding and learning the function of reading, that's something that has to be addressed with specific and literal and intentional strategies. And Wilson is, as you know, and Orton Gillingham, as you're aware of, are very specific, and they're all research-based. So they'll be integrated into the literacy programming as a whole.
Great. What is the high school looking at? What program are they looking at, or are they not sure?
The high school teaches literacy as a core content area. So the high schools, they don't have a program.
Okay.
Their scope and sequence is all based on standards, that type of thing. So they don't have like a program or an approach. Their literacy is based on the standards.
Okay. So then my next question, I'm hoping that you could just talk a little bit about the rationale for having every teacher participate in that program versus because aside from staffing, that's the biggest chunk of money, it seems, the Wilson and the
oh right
sorry, the
Orton Gillingham.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That one, aside from staffing, those are the two biggest chunks of money that are being spent on these funds. So can you just talk a little bit about the rationale behind doing that versus like maybe we want some teachers to do some professional development in this, and this to kind of spread that around? And I don't mean that as a criticism at all. I'm just curious to hear what the rationale is.
Yeah, I totally understand your question. It's like, why would you pick Orton Gillingham over any of the other programs? So
well, and also like focus on that versus like maybe some tech PD, social emotional learning in the classroom, all of those different things that are available. And by the way, in addition to being an administrator, I teach English, so not to diminish reading or literacy in any way, shape, or form.
Orton Gillingham their focus is identifying and working with students with dyslexia. That's the approach behind it. And so the scientific approach behind Orton Gillingham, as well as, and Wilson uses the Orton Gillingham approach, but they package it in a way that provides materials and learning objectives and methodology that's based on the Orton Gillingham. So the investment that we're making in Orton Gillingham is based on our data, and that we have a recognized need to be able to shore up our phonetic and our basic literacy skills. For so long, the approach has been the guided reading, and to ensure, and we're successful at it and with regard to reading intervention, but we know from our data that our students many times leave year after year, and they've got that gap with the phonetic awareness and the decoding skills. If you don't get that right, and if it's not solid, then it will hurt that student for their career. So based on the data, we feel like the Orton Gillingham training is essential. Our instructional coach, Tracy Billy, spends a great deal of time supporting instructional technology. That's, my expertise. Our capacity for using instructional technology, our capacity for utilizing second step for SEL, and we have more materials to fill in those classroom materials. They're in the plan. We know we can do that, and we know we're successful at it, but that early literacy and the phonemic awareness and getting that right is really what we want to focus on. Does that answer your question?
It does. That's super helpful, and I think just to hear that it's that's a data-driven decision is really helpful to hear. So yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
So I have just a couple quick questions. You pulled out some of the allowed uses for, but not all of them. You said it was kind of a long list. So are we able to use these funds like to increase our current staff salaries? So like staff around the district has certainly been rising to the challenge all of this year. Are we able to use these ESSER funds? I'm just gonna call them ESSER.
I think what you're asking is, would the ESSER funds be an opportunity to give our teachers a higher salary? Is that what you're asking?
Potentially, or bonuses, or
Bonuses?
can we use these funds in that way?
Are we allowed to?
Yes.
I don't have an answer for you. I can look into that. To be honest with you, before I answer that question, I want to be absolutely sure I got the right answer.
Awesome. And then the other piece, and I only mention it because it wasn't pulled out in your presentation about the upgrading of air movement units, right? Yes. HVAC is also allowable within this?
Yes, that phrase that I had in that one slide, I pulled that right out of the ESSER. All of those are right out of the document, so that is allowed.
We are planning to use some of these funds to support the improvement over at the junior high.
Yes.
For their HVAC system.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Ms. Conover, the one thing I wanted to be clear about is that the allowable elements, or what we're allowed to use, what we really focused on was to collaborate with those individual principals to ensure that they made the decisions based on the gaps in their programming, the gaps in their materials, and the gaps in their staffing. So there's a lot of things that we're allowed to do with the funds, but it would completely change our approach in terms of this program. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's very helpful to understand that really that's coming, the direction from our principals who understand the needs of their buildings better than anybody else. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
The other thing and I just want to reiterate, is not just those individual principals, but we sit together in a room with all of us, and we align these goals based on our district as a whole. And so the principals work together to ensure that each individual school has what they need. So that's a very powerful aspect of this development.
I'm sorry, one last thing came up, Nadine. I know you have to put the grants in to get the money. Is this a guaranteed amount? They can't come back and say you're gonna get less?
No.
That's the guaranteed amount?
We're getting this
All right.
Good question, though.
This is great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Nadine?
Okay, I'll see you in a couple minutes.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the 2021-2022 student fees.
All right, good evening. There are several documents attached in Board Docs for you. There's a memo outlining rationale for school fees for this year, as well as a 10-year summary of our fees. And one of the things for this year, coming off the pandemic and things have not been normal, we decided that it did not make sense to increase fees this year. We're very cognizant of financial stressors that all families are facing, and so this would not be a year to increase fees. The couple changes that we did have was the junior high gown fee is going up by $2. because that's a charge directly from Jostens. And then as far as the high school, that cap and gown fee, we don't really want to be in the cap and gown business. And at the high school level, we can have them work with our parents directly, and parents pay them. So that's the route that we want to go for that. And so the families will have, there'll be information coming out for them on how they order. And my children have been out of high school for a long time. And when they were in high school, we paid Jostens directly. So this is a long-standing type of program, and we need to get to that point here. And then, again, based on information from the high school, theater, stagecraft was one area where they thought a small $10 fee would be appropriate for that class for the materials that are utilized by students. And then we just did a little bit of clarification. The majority of the art classes will have a fee, and Megan Vervink and I will be going through and reviewing that. And then music, choir, madrigals, guitar. Again, when we say music, we just did a little bit of clarifying exactly what music meant for the $10 fee, so everyone is clear on that. So for this year, again, there's only a couple changes. And then in terms of lunches, right now, we believe that those prices will be the same. It's really probably a moot point at this time, because it appears that we will be able to provide free lunches for all students for next year. And we'll keep you updated as far as if there's any changes to that as we go along. But we'd still do the seamless summer option, which we're doing right now. It gives us a little bit more flexibility. The district also receives a higher reimbursement than we do under the National School Lunch Program. So it's in our best interest. And even with having the free meals right now, it's still, average to actually low participation. So we're not expecting a huge increase in participation, but obviously we'll be monitoring that as the year progresses. Does anybody have questions about the school fees? Okay.
No questions? Okay. We move to the next item. It's the presentation of the monthly financials.
All right.
I know we have both March and April. So.
We're getting caught up. Okay. For the month of March, the district received $183,000 from the state, and there were $232,000 of payments vouchered but not released. Most of that was for the categoricals. In the ed and tort funds, revenues are slightly below the prior year average, and we received $183,000 in the ed fund. So all of that was for the ed fund. And then of that $232,000 that's vouchered, $71,000 is for the ed and tort funds, and then $161,000 of that is for our transportation fund. So overall, revenues in the transportation fund are greater than the prior year, and state reimbursements vary greatly from year to year, and they are they're greater this year than they were last year. Because of COVID, not as many districts had as much claims in, so we got a little bit more. I think this year, I don't think that will probably be the case. So, and then as far as expenditures go, in the ed and tort funds, they're comparable to the prior year average without the contingencies, and obviously below with contingencies. We have been fortunate, we have not had to dip into that contingency amount so far this year. In the O&M, the funds expenditures vary year to year. To date, we're 59.69% spent without contingencies and 56.75% spent with, and we were 64.78% spent last year. One thing I did want to make everyone aware of was, I don't know if you remember everything that was happening with the frozen pipelines in Texas in February, and then we had, you know, those extremely cold temperatures. We purchase a fixed amount of our energy, and because of the extreme cold, and it coincided with the issues in Texas, we actually had to purchase some additional energy, and the prices skyrocketed. And we're not the only district that this has happened to. It's happened to many, many districts. So our natural gas bill for the month of February was $121,000. And that was, we budgeted $137,000 for the whole year. So we did receive about a $17,000 credit back for that. We just received that this month. And we're fortunate that we have balances. Our electricity usage, again, because we haven't been in school the whole time, has been lower. So we have those bills have been lower. So we have some money there that we can utilize to offset the natural gas. So we should be okay overall. But just it's in like the 14 or 15 years that I've been in education, this has never happened. So it's just a really fluke thing, and kind of, you know, all bad things colliding at once. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And then as far as the transportation fund, again, expenditures are lower than they have been in the past because of our remote learning days, and you'll be hopefully approving one of the contracts. So you'll start to see us paying all those bills, and it will be, you'll see a much greater usage of those funds. And then the investments are attached. We have $14.7 million invested as of the month of March. And again, fund balances continued to decline. You'll see that throughout April, and then we'll receive a tax payment in May. So you'll start to see the fund balances start to move in the other direction. And then in terms of our lunch program, again, if you look at our revenue over under expense, we are in a much better position this year. Even though we haven't received any student payments, our revenue sources are significantly different this year than they have been in the past. So our meal reimbursements are higher than they normally are during with the National School Lunch Program, so that's been a benefit to the district this year, as well as making sure that our families have nutritious meals for our students. Does anybody have questions on March? Okay, then we'll go on to April. During the month of April, we received $513,000 from the state. So again, this is because of a lot of our grant funding. We've gotten reimbursements for the expenditures we've made. There's $8,000 of fiscal year 21 payments vouchered. In the ed fund, again, revenues are slightly below average, and we did receive $351,000 of fiscal year 21 payments, again, grant funding. And then in the revenues in the O&M fund are slightly higher than the prior year. And in the transportation fund, they are fluctuate from year to year. They're greater, again, than the prior year averages. And then the rest of that state money was for the transportation fund. And then expenditures in the ed and tort fund are comparable to the prior year average. In our O&M fund, we're 67% spent to date and 63.76% with contingencies. And again, transportation fund, you'll start to see that number change as we go on. And then you can see that, you know, last month we had $14.7 million invested. this year 13.3, as we continue to need that money to pay our bills until the next round of tax payments come in. Does anybody have questions on April?
Thank you,
All right,
Kim.
thank you.
All right, we have several action items tonight, so we'll move into those. The first is the approval of student handbook changes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the recommended revisions to the elementary, junior high, and high school student handbooks as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Okay. The second is the approval of the Clever Board purchase. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the purchase of interactive boards to be deployed in all classrooms at Manning Elementary School, Miller Elementary School, Westmont Junior High School, and South School during the 2021-2022 school year, not to exceed the cost of $155,000.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Okay. The third action item, approval of non-exempt employees for salary increase for FY21. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the non-exempt employee salary increases for Chris Vent and Anisha Garulik for FY21 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes. Fourth action item, approval of non-exempt employees' retirement compensation. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the non-exempt employee retirement compensation for Chris Vent as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Okay. The next action item, approval of the authority for additional May 2021 expenditures. The chair will entertain a motion to authorize and direct the treasurer to pay any bills received in May 2021 that have been budgeted for the 2021 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Okay. The next action item is the approval of Title I school-wide waiver. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the Title I school-wide waivers for Miller, Westmont Junior High, and Westmont High School as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Okay. The next agenda item is approval of consolidated district plan for title grants. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consolidated district plan for the title grants as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Okay. Approval of the 2020-2021 revised student fees. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the 2020-2021 revised school fees as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Okay. Approval of 2021-2022 student fees. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the 2021-2022 school fees as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Avia?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Okay. And the last action item, approval of the amendment to the Westway 2020-2021 contract. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the contract amendment with Westway Coach for 2020-21 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Conover.
Yes.
Mr. Avia.
Yes.
Mr. Steckity.
Yes.
Ms. Hoover.
Yes.
Ms. Redonio.
Yes.
Ms. Coyle.
Yes. My understanding is we're holding on the Sunrise? Okay.
Sunrise, yep.
Okay. And the next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Just one item in my report, similar to last year, some of the things that we were doing as a result of COVID-19 worked out well for the district, and so we're going to continue some of those practices. One of them is registration. So this year, registration will again be done completely electronically for the 21-22 school year. Families will be able to complete the registration process through Skyward. Registration will open on July 30th, and then we'll close on August 6th, and additional information will be forthcoming. But we won't need to set up in the junior high and have an evening when everybody has to come in and go through the registration process. So worked out well last year, so we'll do that again this year.
Okay. Anything else, Kevin?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Are there any board reports?
I got lots of things to say. So I'll start backwards. Teacher Appreciation Week was at the beginning of this month, and I wanted to put out a big thank you to the parents, the community, lots of donations. Everybody was so willing to give to the staff to get everything, all the parents, food galore, and then that was just as parent reps set up in the schools. Parents gave above and beyond that as well. The community, we received lots of donations from throughout the community and a little bit outside of our community for prizes, for food, for all of that exciting stuff. So a big thank you to everyone for that. And then I just want to recognize the 5th grade. It's their last year, and it was a crazy year, the second crazy year, but they were combined this year. So Miller was able to take in a project that we started at Manning some years ago, the self-portrait project. Everything looks great. The legacy piece of it will be up in the building probably the beginning of June. So they did a great job.
Great. Any other board reports? I mean, I just want to say, I know we're going to talk about future meetings and events in a minute. I just want to say congratulations to all of our graduates that will be graduating here in a week? Holy, how did that happen? So congratulations. Congratulations to everyone for making it through this school year successfully. Kevin, Kim, Nadine, Shannon, all the staff, all the administration, all the students, all the parents, the community. It's been a heck of a year, and I can't believe we're about to close it out. So, but especially congratulations to our graduates and their families. Any other board reports? If not, we'll move into public comment. Are there any public comments? Okay. So future meetings and events. There is a special meeting of the Board of Education this Thursday, May 20th at 5 p.m. That'll be at Westmont Junior High in the Media Center. The Westmont Junior High 8th grade dance carnival is May 21st at 7:30 p.m. Westmont Junior High 8th grade graduation is May 24th at 6 p.m. at the Westmont High School football field. Westmont High School graduation is May 26th, 2021 at 7 p.m. the Westmont High School football field. The last day of school for the year is May 21st. Oh, sorry, 27th, I read that wrong. We're done in 3 days. The 27th, sorry, kids, for you who are watching. And the next board meeting is June 22nd, 2021, here at Village Hall. Are there any other items to cover, Kevin?
Nope, we're all set.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.